JJ, I want to pose this over to Damian first and have you piggyback after that, JJ, because the reaction, Damian, that you gave when we reported that Brandon Beane will be retained as the GM, given the convos that we've had and everything, does that seem shaky, iffy? What does that make you want to say, given what your body's saying?
It makes me want to do exactly what I'm doing right here, because I understand the conversation about why are you not, if you have Josh Allen, why are you not competing for Super Bowls every year, regardless of if Lamar's in the playoffs, regardless of if Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs? At some point, you should be able to knock off Patrick Mahomes. Like, we see those two as the two best in the league right now. You should be able to get him on a day when he gets you on a day. I understand that conversation. I want to talk about the fact that what help. Now, I know he had Stephon Diggs. I'm talking about drafting guys, developing guys like Keon Coleman, who they were enamored by, who Brandon Beane, the GM, the entire front office staff fell in love with from an interview, from the jokes, the laughs, and et cetera. And that doesn't pan out. That's a weapon that would have helped Josh Allen win. I'm very confused by this for a lot of reasons, especially because McDermott and Beane have been connected for a long time. We talked about, they go way back to Carolina days when people don't even remember they were in Carolina. This relationship has gone, they followed each other everywhere. And I think that a lack of success for Sean McDermott also falls on the shoulders of Brandon Beane, the way he drafts, the way he's orchestrated the team, the way that they have been able to develop these guys. So if anything, I think both of these guys deserve the blame because they're always on the same page. They always make decisions together. They see through the same lens. I'm just curious how you let go of McDermott, but you retain Beane. And, we want to talk about Pegula's relationship with McDermott. How does this, what strain or stress does this put on the relationship of McDermott and Beane?
I think it's a completely fair point that you're making, Damian, and it's one that I think a lot of folks, not just in Buffalo, but around the league, would certainly make as well. You're right to point out that they came together from Carolina, got to know each other there when Sean McDermott was defensive coordinator. Brandon Beane was working his way up through the front office, and then they go to Buffalo essentially together, staggered by a few months. And you would think that Sean McDermott's success is Brandon Beane's success, yes, and their one's failure is the other's failure. That's completely fair. What I would say, generally speaking, in the NFL, and we have seen this play out even this year with general managers, is they typically are even closer to the owner than the head coach. They talk more with the owner. They get the owner's okay on a lot of things. Sean McDermott doesn't have to get Terry Pegula's okay when he's going to challenge or not challenge a play. He doesn't have to get Terry Pegula's okay when he wants to call a timeout or run a certain play, right? But when Brandon Beane is drafting a certain player or making a free agency move, he can walk the owner through that decision. And then the owner can sort of own that as his own decision as well, right? Well, I could have put a stop to it if I wanted to. And so I'm speaking very generally across the NFL, why general managers typically, when both could go, general managers typically stay longer than head coaches. That is usually the reason, because Terry Pegula would believe that whatever failures were made on the personnel side, he was very involved in that. But coaching-wise, and if you believe in this roster, as clearly Terry Pegula does, as clearly Brandon Beane does, you'd think that, well, if we just change the coach, surely we can get to the Super Bowl.
So let's go down that aisle of changing the coach for Buffalo. Do you think that will be enough to change the tides of the way things have gone in Buffalo, Damian? Because maybe you could try to trade for Mike Tomlin, see if he actually wants to sit or if he wants to coach right now. You have Joe Brady there as your offensive coordinator. Maybe if you would have waited a little bit, you could have had Harbaugh. Or if Harbaugh would have waited, you could have had him. But what's the right move here, you think?
Well, so you just mentioned something that I think is very, very important in all of this. What happens with Joe Brady now? Does he take this head coaching job? Does he get interviewed for this head coaching job? Or does he end up somewhere else? And then my question is, if Sean McDermott is retained, is he able to keep Joe Brady? Why is this important? Why am I bringing up Joe Brady? It's because of his relationship with 17, his relationship with Josh Allen. When they got rid of, what was I forget the name of our coordinator that we had back before. He went to he went to Cleveland.
Ken Dorsey.
Ken Dorsey. Whenever they got rid of Ken Dorsey, a big problem of that was he didn't call the plays that Josh Allen liked. They couldn't get on the same page for an offensive game plan or how they wanted to run the offense or the freedom that Josh got in that. Joe Brady, he turns the keys over to Josh. He lets Josh have full creative control on the offensive side of the ball. I know that because I was there for a year. I saw it. So how is that part of the equation? If you lose Joe Brady, how does that affect 17? Because I can tell you this much also, 17, as much as he sat in the locker room and talked about, man, I let our guys down, I bet for a split second he thinks to himself, am I the reason why McDermott got fired? Am I the cause of this? Because when it all comes down, everything falls on the shoulders of Josh Allen. We haven't been able to get it done. Now, to get back to the coaching situation, I just had to throw that out because I'm very enamored by what's going to happen with Joe Brady. There's a lot of good options out here. I would have loved to have seen John Harbaugh in this position, coaching Josh Allen, sharing some of that GM responsibility with Brandon Beane, making some of those roster decisions. I think that would have been a good option. But I think you go and deal with somebody who's used to playing in the cold, who's used to playing in a blue-collar type of market, somebody like Mike Tomlin, just see if he's interested. Just see if he's interested.
I'll tell you this. All the talk that you just had about Joe Brady, I think we're going to have a lot of that talk with Buffalo. I'm searching through my phone right now, but it was more than a week ago. I got a text from a very well-placed source outside of Buffalo who said be on the lookout for them if they don't succeed in the playoffs, moving on from Sean McDermott and Joe Brady ultimately taking that job. And we've seen that Joe Brady, because of the way that the NFL rules are set up, the playoffs, he has not gone in for second in-person interviews. And so his positioning right now, if he ultimately becomes the guy in Buffalo, they're only one interview behind. And honestly, and obviously, because he's been there for years, there are no interviews behind. They know what they have in Joe Brady. So he's interviewing for 3 jobs, among them, I believe, the Miami Dolphins and the Baltimore Ravens. It looks like the Dolphins may be going for Jeff Hafley. And so I say all that to say that Joe Brady could very well be the option in Buffalo. I don't know this for certain, but I would be very surprised if there's anything in Joe Brady's contract that allows for him to be the coach in waiting. And I mention that because if you do have that, you don't have to run a search. Remember, Gerard Mayo with the New England Patriots, he had that in his deal when Bill Belichick was summarily dismissed, and then he was able to be elevated to the head coach position. I don't think that's going to happen. The Bills are going to have to run a search, but this is going to be a highly coveted position because you do have a quarterback in Josh Allen. Joe Brady, again, the number one name that we should be talking about. I'm going to take Mike Tomlin and everyone's word around Mike Tomlin that he's not coaching in 2026. I don't think the Bills should be spending capital in order to get Mike Tomlin for a guy who does not appear to want to coach this year. But there, again, John Harbaugh, Kevin Stefanski have already been snapped up. The Tennessee Titans should get their guy in the next 24 hours. The Miami Dolphins may get theirs. Chris Shula is going to be a name that you're also going to hear with the LA Rams at defensive coordinator. But Joe Brady should be the top name for Buffalo right now. And
then now we also throw Sean McDermott out there into the name for all other teams who are looking for a head coach moving forward. We certainly have a whole lot more to talk about with the Bills, and we will do that on the other side when we come back. But, of course, it is Sean McDermott who has been fired and is out in Buffalo after 8 career playoff wins, but having that slip up this year in what was many considered the golden ticket year for Josh Allen. They didn't get it done. Now McDermott is out.